Okay, hello everyone. This little movie is really designed to sort of help people out when creating 2D objects, finding their way around the various menus, and then converting 2D objects into 3D objects, and then from 3D objects into creating a symbol which you could then use to transfer your model around from one drawing to another. I hope it's useful. It's not perfect, I know, but if you stop and start, slow it down, pause it, turn my voice off, it may help you if you get a little bit stuck. Let me know if it's of much use. Okay, thanks very much. I've already set my document up and I've got a layer in there called border, and I've already put a title block and border on it in preparation. And what I want to do now first is to create a new layer within my document onto which I'm going to create my terrace area on which my pergola is going to sit. So first I'm going to go into the layer button up here, click, and then I'm going to, you can see that I've already got a border layer there, and the scale of my border and all the layers in this document are set to 1 to 25. That's exactly what I want, so I'm happy with that. But I am going to click a new layer and I'm going to call it terrace. There we are, we've entered the name, we click OK, and you can see a new layer called terrace has appeared over the top of the border layer. If I now click OK to close the organisation pane, you can now see that the border layer and the title block have gone grey. Now this is because the current active layer is the terrace layer and the border isn't active, and in my view options, if we have a look at the view options, I've got grey others turned on. Okay, so that's why the border layer is appearing grey currently. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a simple shape to represent the terrace onto which my pergola is going to be placed. So I'm going to go over into the basic tool set here, select the rectangle tool, click to select it, drag over to move over into the drawing area. Just make sure that you've got the corner to corner rectangle tool selected, because that's the easiest drawing mode for the rectangle. Move over to the drawing area, click, let go, and you can see that you can start to draw a rectangle of any shape. As you draw, you can see that you get the little blue box travelling with the cursor, and that allows you to tab into that box while your object is still live, so that you can type in the numbers which represent the size of the object. In this case, I want an object of 4,000 wide by 3,000 deep. And you'll notice that it's got a minus in it. That's basically because it's going to draw it downwards instead of upwards. You'll see what happens in a minute. I hit the return key when I'm ready. That draws out the actual shape to the right size. If I'm happy, hit the return key again and it should give me the object that I want. There we go, so I've now got a shape that I can move around of the right size. You'll notice also that as once I've done that, it's created an object information pane for that object, and currently you can see the width and the height of that object displayed in there. So if I wanted to create an object and I didn't want to do all the tabbing with the little blue box, I could actually just create an object of any size like I've just done there, and then I could select the width and the height in the information pane and change that so that it would match what I want. And that's another sort of quick way of doing it if you're a bit awkward about using the little blue boxes and the tabbing. So I don't want that box. There's my box that I want, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 3D object out of that, so it's a 3D version of my terrace. And to do that, the easiest thing to do is to create a hardscape from that object. So if I go to landmark and I go down to the create object from shapes, that might actually appear as create object from polyline in your version. I select that option. It's actually going to give me an object type pop-up menu. It's already set on a hardscape, but I could select any number of objects from that list. I'm going to go for hardscape, click OK. I'm actually going to, before I click OK, I'm going to tell it to delete the source shape. Now what that will do is it will take the shape that I've just created, which is a 2D object, and delete it from the page, so I only get left with the hardscape. Since I don't want the multiple objects, I'm going to turn that radio button on. So I'm going to click OK now, and it's turned that object into a hardscape area, and you can see that lots of information has appeared in the information palette. I now need to edit my hardscape, so I'm going to go into the hardscape settings with this button, click OK, give it a name, terrace. Okay, I'm going to draw a border, so I'm going to give it a border width of 100 millimeters. That's a bit like having a border of brick or sets maybe around the edge. I'm going to also turn on the 3D mode, so I want it to be projected as a slab in 3D, and it's going to be 100 millimeters thick. I've also got an option here within the definition to set a hatch, which is a sort of a pattern for the paving. So if I want to do that, I can go to this list and select any number of hatches that I've got available. This one looks fine to me. I'm just going to click OK for speed. Then click OK to close that dialog box, and there I should have a nice kind of area of paving with a sort of 100 millimeter border around the edge. And if I just want to check to see what that looks like in 3D, go to left isometric, and you see that it's got a sort of a three-dimensional kind of depth to it as well. So it's all working fine, that's great. So there is my 3D object. Now I can start to build my pergola. So I've created my terrace on my terrace layer. I now want to go and create a new layer, which I'm now going to call pergola. So new layer again, pergola. Give it a name, click OK. Now the pergola is now on top of the terrace, so I've got two layers below my pergola. So they will both now appear grey, and the pergola will be black. Okay, now I'm ready to begin creating my pergola. So the first thing I want to do is create 4 upright posts. So first thing to do is to create the first post using the rectangle tool. So use it onto the rectangle tool in the basic tool set, move over to the drawing area, and start to draw a simple shape again like we've just done before, but this time it's going to be 100 by 100. There we have our first post. But rather than mess about trying to sort of position all that by hand, what I'm going to do is go to the selection tool, then go back up to my edit menu, and I'm going to duplicate array. So if I go to duplicate array, I want to duplicate one object. I don't want to duplicate it in the x-axis, I want to duplicate it in the y-axis, and I know that the distance between my posts is 1708. Okay, like before, y with a minus in front of it will go downwards, no minus will go upwards. So I'm putting minus to go down, so click OK, and there I've got 2 objects in perfect alignment for me. Now I want to create the other 2 objects on the other side of the pergola. So to do that I'm going to use duplicate array again. Go to duplicate array. I only want one duplicate of the 2 objects that I've got selected this time. I don't want to duplicate it in the y-axis, but I do want to duplicate it in the x-axis. And because I want to go to the right, I'm not going to put a minus in front, I'm just going to use a sort of positive number, so 2798. And there we go, we've got the other 2 posts created. Now if I select all of those 4 objects, which are now sort of perfectly aligned, I can convert those into 3D objects. So select them, go to the the model menu, go to extrude, and I'm going to extrude those to the height that I want, which is, if I look at my drawing, it is 2103. So So go 2103, extrude. Now those have become a 3D extrude object, although you wouldn't know it looking at them. So let's just check. If we go up to our little pull down menu for the view of the model, I could just look at left isometric, and there we can see I've got 4 posts sitting on my terrace. Go back to top view. So I've got my posts. Now what I need to do is create the bearers that are going to go on either side of the post to support the rafters. And I know that the bearers are 3080 long by 50mm deep. So if I create one of those quickly, so it's 3080 by -50. There we go. That's one of my rafters, and I'm going to just zoom in to have a look at where that is, and I'm just going to nudge it down by holding down the shift key and then using the arrow keys to nudge up, down, left, right. I'm just going to nudge it down so it's sitting right on top of my post there. Then I'm going to zoom out again so we can have another look. And now I could duplicate that manually by simply selecting it and holding down the shift and control key and then dragging down to duplicate that object. So now I've got those 2 objects duplicated, one on either side of the post. So if I select both of those, and I just want to check to make sure they're in perfect alignment with the upright posts. So if I select those 2 post shapes that I've just created and the 4 posts that I created earlier, and then I just go to the edit, go to the modify menu. I'm going to go to align and distribute, and what I want to do is I want to align in the vertical axis. So I'm going to align centrally, but I don't want to align or distribute in the other axis. So if I click OK now, okay, now we should have those in perfect alignment with those posts. So I can select those 2 objects if I wanted to now, and then I could again, holding it down the shift and the control key, drag down so that those are aligned on the other 2 uprights. If I've not got it quite perfect, I can again use the hold the shift key down, use the nudge tool just to sort of get those in perfect position. And if I'm not quite sure, I can zoom in just to check, see what's happening. There we go. Nudge a little bit more precisely there. Okay, so there we are. We have something that looks like the 2 bearers. The thing is, we haven't extruded these yet, so I need to select all 4 of those. And then if I now go to modify and model, extrude, and this time I want to extrude to 150mm, click OK, and those will have extruded. But if we then go and look in, let's go and look in left view, you'll see that those objects have been extruded at the bottom of my posts. That's basically because every time you make a new extrude, it positions the start of the extrude at 0. But I actually want those to be at the top of my posts. So I need to change the bottom Z of those objects. So if I calculate the difference between the height and those and the bearers, all I would need to do is basically go into my calculator, type in the height of the post, so it's 2103 minus 150 equals 1953. Go back to my drawing. The Z height therefore has to be 1953. Type that into the Z axis and you can see that my bearers have zipped up to the top of the posts now, so they're in the right position. Okay, so if I go back to top plan view, now I know that my bearers are in alignment with my posts and they're at the right height. So the next stage of the process is to actually have a look at creating the rafters that sit on top of the bearers. So I'll just move my drawing around to make it a little bit clearer. So I know the first rafter is going to sit on top of the post there, and I'm not going to sort of mess about trying to get that too accurate. I'm just going to sort of initially draw the rafter, and I need to just check the size of the rafter, which is 2240. So again, I'm just going to draw a new shape. I'm going to let go, and I'm going to adjust it in this one this time. So I'm going to say the width of that is 50 and the height of that is 2240. Click OK. So that should represent my first rafter. Okay, so having created my rafter here, I now want to just make sure that the position of that rafter vertically in relation to these other objects is correct. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the sort of select tool to marquee, that's by dragging around just those objects, not including my rafter. Drag around them, let go, then they're all selected. And then if I just want to go into, we just go to modify, and then we're going to group those, they'll turn into a little group of their own. And you'll notice that my rafter isn't part of that group. So if I select my rafter and that group, I can then go to modify, and I can go to line and distribute. And what I want to do is I want to align it vertically, but I don't want to do any horizontal alignment, do I? So I just want to do it vertically. Click OK. And then those objects will shift so that they're in exact alignment with my rafter. So that's good. So that's now in the right place. Okay, right, so to save myself time in duplicating and positioning these things accurately, all I need to do is again select my rafter, go to duplicate array. Okay, so this time I'm going to count how many duplicates I need to do. Well, I've already got one of them, so how many do I need in total? I need 5, so I need 4 others. So I'm going to click, type in 4 duplicates this time, and again I'm going to do a horizontal offset, so that's kind of the x-axis, but this time it is 699. So click 699 to put that into the x-axis, click OK. Then it should duplicate the other rafters in exactly the right spacing for me, so that's great. Make sure they're all selected. Now these are still 2D objects, so what I need to do is just go into model, and I'm going to extrude those. There again, extruded 150, which is already in there, which is convenient. Click OK. Now I've got those extruded, but again, don't forget, those have been extruded so that they're sitting on the bottom. This time we don't have to do many calculations at all, so we know that the height of the posts is 2103, and we want those to sit directly on top of our bearers and our posts. So if I type in 2103, the bottom Z shifts up. So if we just then move that down, so there we go, there are my rafters sitting on top of my bearers and my posts. So again, go back into top plan view, have a look at that. So basically in no time at all I've created a very simple pergola, which we can have a look at again, left isometric, just to sort of see what's going on. Everything looks pretty good, and there we go, our pergola is more or less done. Now our next task is to turn that into a hybrid object or symbol, which we can then use to transfer the object around and manage it a little bit better than if it was just a whole group of individual objects like it currently is. So let's convert our 3D objects that we've just created. So there's our rafters and our pergola structure that we created earlier on. We're going to make those into a symbol. Now to do that, all we need to do is just select them all. So we've got them all selected. You can tell if they're selected because they all sort of go orange. Yeah, we're again going to go to modify menu, and right the way down there, and you can see an item there called create symbol. That turns the current selection into a symbol and places it into the symbol library. Okay, so we create symbol, Okay, and this gives us this option where we can actually give the object a name. So we're going to call it a pergola. Okay, it's plan projection center, that's all fine, it's world based, we don't need to worry too much about that. Insertion into walls, we don't want it to insert into walls because it's not that sort of object. Do we want to leave the instance in place? That is, leave the one that we've currently got on view active on the page. Yes, I think we do. Change 2D objects from layer plane to screen plane. Leave that turned on, that's fine. Click OK. It'll ask us where we want it to be saved, and we can choose where we put it if we like. In this instance, just for speed, I'm just going to say OK, and let it do whatever it does. Okay, and there we now have a hybrid object, which is a symbol. Okay, so now we can have a little look at that symbol and make a few more changes to it. You'll notice that when we've actually created 3D objects, they all appear in 2D as transparent objects. You can see all the overlapping lines, you can see basically right through the objects. That is because they're 3D objects and they haven't got any sort of characteristics which will make them look solid in 2D plan view. So the way that we get around that is we make it into a symbol which is a hybrid object, which means that the object has a 2D component and a 3D component. So it has one particular sort of view when it's being used in 3D and another sort of view when it's being used in 2D. So if we double click on our object, you'll see that we get an edit symbol dialog box appear, which gives us access to the 2D components, the 3D components, and its wall behaviour. We're not interested in the wall behaviour with this particular object, but we are interested in the 2D and the 3D components. So with the 3D components currently selected, let's just have a quick look. So if we click edit, the edit button, that takes us into a view. You'll see there's this edit symbol box appear right in the top right hand side. Now basically we're inside our object and we can actually look at it in 3D. So we can look at it in the left view there if we want. We can look at it in left isometric view. There we go. We can look at it in top plan view, which is great, but that is a 3D object. And we actually want to actually have a 2D object available to us as well. So with that all selected, I am going to go to the edit menu and copy that. I'm going to exit the symbol briefly, then double click it again, and this time I'm going to go into the 2D component. If I then click edit, we'll go into the 2D component and you can see there's nothing there at all. So what I'm going to do, because I've just copied the 3D object, I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to go to paste in place. Now it's placed the 3D object, but I actually want that to be a 2D object. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to modify and I'm going to convert to polygons. So if I convert that to polygons, yes, I want it to be hidden line. Basically, if I decide to make it as a hidden line object, it will basically give me filled polygons which have got a kind of a solid colour in them. If I choose wireframe rendering, it will look exactly as it does now, so it's all transparent and see-through, which is not what we want. So we want hidden line. Click OK. Okay. And it should convert my object to a hidden line drawing. So now it looks like the pergola as if we're looking at it from above, and all the kind of surfaces are filled in as they should be when you would see it from above. So if I now exit my symbol, yes, that's fine, I should now see a 2D version of my pergola, and if I go to look in left isometric, I should see a 3D version of my pergola. Okay, so now I have the two different components of my symbol. If I go back to top plan view, if I wanted to change the coloration in that 2D component, I could go into here and I'm just going to edit the components, Now we can see here, this is my attributes palette. Very crudely, if I wanted to select all those things, and instead of making them fill white, I could actually then choose another colour from the palette. I'm going to go for that brown there, click OK. Now they all appear brown with a black outline. I might want to change that black outline. I don't like the look of that, that's a bit too fine. I want maybe for it to be a 0.18 line. Okay, so there's my object. Let's just have a look a bit closer at that. Okay, so I've got something going on here which I don't want. Some squares appeared that we... Oops. That's the one disadvantage of saving it as sometimes you get some extraneous objects that you don't really want, and you have to deal with those in the 2D mode. That's because we took the polygons and converted them. Oh, we don't want to select everything there, do we? Just those objects. That's because we took the 3D object and converted it into polygons, and that's the reason it's done that. But it's only a very minor edit that we have to do to solve that problem. Be careful that you don't sort of select the wrong thing. Let's just do it like that, that's alright. If it does ask you to autosave, it's always a good idea to do it, because just in case something horrible goes wrong, you won't lose all that work that you've just spent quite a few minutes doing. Okay, so there's what it would look like in 2D with colour. Exit that group again. There we go. And that's our 2D version of our pergola. And then let's have a look at our 3D version, left isometric. Okay, there it is. That's how we want it to look. Just to sort of see how that might look in 3D, let's just have a look. We'll do a quick rendering of that. So I'm going to use OpenGL, which is very quick. Then you can see that the rendering of that isn't the same as the 2D render. That's because we need to apply the colours that we use in 3D independently of the colours that we use in 2D. So I'm just going to go back into top plan view, and I'm going to go back into my symbol, and I'm going to go to edit these 3D components this time. There we are, we're in the 3D components. If I just make sure I've got those all selected and I choose a colour, I'm going to go for the same colour again. Okay, now that won't appear in the 3D symbol because that's a sort of an inherited property of the 3D object, so it won't actually appear until you render the 3D object. So I'll exit that symbol. I'm in top plan view. I'm going to move over to left isometric. There we go. I'm going to have a quick look at the rendering again, so I'm going to go to OpenGL. There we go. This time it's displaying in that sort of brown colour that I chose, which is fine. Back into top pan view, and there it is in its 2D form. Now if I just bring onto the screen here the resources browser, and I'm going to go into Pergola 3, which is my file, we can see what objects I've got in there, and there's the hatch that I've been using for the paved area, and there is my pergola. So that's the two objects that I'm currently using in there. So that's my symbol, which I could then use to transport this pergola from one model to another. now. So let's just look at it in left view. And if we look in left view, we'll notice that my pergola is sitting right at 0, whereas my paving, which is this area here, so let's just go back into terrace area. You can see my terrace area, that is sitting above 0 as well. So we actually want my pergola to sit on top of my terrace area. So if I select the symbol and then just move that, move that out of the way, I can now use the nudge keys, the shift and the arrow key on the keyboard to nudge it into place, and I can nudge it down. So now my pergola in relation to my terrace is in exactly the right position. Looking left isometric view, that's looking good. I now want to just change I want to show other layers. There we go. So there are my 2 layers, my terrace and my pergola. I've also got a projection of my border layer, which I ideally don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to there. I'm going to actually turn my border layer off because I don't want to see that. So there we go. There is my terrace sitting on my my pergola sitting on my terrace. And if we do a quick render, let's just have a look. Layer options, standard view, rendering, OpenGL. There's my terrace area and my pergola sitting on top of it. So that's good, all done.